At 6 in the morning local time, the captain of a very large crude carrier named Pacific Fortuna orders engines ahead standard. 330 meters of double-hull steel, pushing southeast through the Persian Gulf. Routine departure. At least it would be if the world's most important oil choke point wasn't shut down by a country that just lost a war and decided to win anyway. Unknown to the bridge crew, an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps monitoring station on Qeshm Island has been tracking the ship since she loaded. The Pacific Fortuna has 90 nautical miles of Iranian coastline between her and open water. No weapons aboard, no escort. She is about to enter it. From this point, the math is simple and unforgiving. 90 nautical miles of Iranian coastline at 15 knots. 6 hours until open water. And every single mile of it is under Iranian guns. The ship pushes into the shipping lanes, officially called the Traffic Separation Scheme, which sounds like something a homeowners association would send a passive-aggressive letter about, until you realize it is the only thing keeping two streams of oncoming traffic from hitting each other head-on. The whole strait is 21 miles across at the narrowest point, but ships do not get to use all of it. All traffic gets squeezed into 2 lanes, each one only 2 miles wide, with a 2-mile gap between them. Inbound on one side, outbound on the other. The whole corridor barely 6 miles across. Imagine driving a 3-football field-long truck through a 2-lane tunnel with no shoulder and no exits. The truck needs 15 minutes to brake and is hauling flammable liquid. That is a very large crude carrier transit through Hormuz on a good day. This is not a good day. The tanker drives deeper into the Narrows, and the Iranian coastline begins dominating the view to starboard. The geography tells you everything you need to know. Iran does not guard the door to the Persian Gulf. Iran is the door. Both walls, ceiling, and floor. Qeshm Island alone stretches 120 kilometers parallel to the narrowest section. And the islands of Larak, Hormuz, and the disputed Abu Musa sit directly in the shipping lanes. Each one with an IRGC garrison, radar stations, and coastal weapons. Before the crisis, roughly 15 million barrels of crude moved through here daily, 20% of the world's seaborne oil. Right now, that number is 0 if your flag is friendly to the Americans. And 47 tankers sit at anchor in the Gulf of Oman because nobody wants to drive through what the strait has become. The Pacific Fortuna is about to sail past every one of them going the wrong direction. The maritime equivalent of driving the wrong way through a border crossing at midnight in reverse, with every light on the car blazing. And the guy in the booth already has his hand on the radio. Here is the part that makes Iran's job insultingly easy. The small antenna on the Pacific Fortuna's mast is her automatic identification system transponder. Every commercial ship in the world has to keep it running. International law requires it, which means every few seconds the Pacific Fortuna is broadcasting her exact position, speed, heading, and cargo on a frequency anyone can listen to. The whole point is collision avoidance, keeping ships from running into each other. But it also means that anyone with a $200 receiver, including every IRGC monitoring station on the Iranian coast, can track every vessel in the strait in real time without lifting a finger. The Pacific Fortuna is required by law to announce her own approach to the enemy. She is sending them a text message every few seconds. It is like sharing your location with your ex-wife. Except your ex-wife does not have anti-ship missiles. At least you hope not. The bridge crew picks up chatter on the VHF radio. Voices in Farsi. IRGC Navy identifiers. Somebody is clearly discussing the Pacific Fortuna. Then the radio goes silent, and the first mate stares at the speaker like it just made a threat. He is not wrong. The lookout sees it first. A dark object, bearing 010, 400 meters ahead, riding low in the outbound lane. Could be a plastic drum off a fishing boat. Could be something far worse. From the bridge of a ship riding 20 meters above the waterline, you cannot tell the difference. And you will not know which one it is until it is far too late. The captain reaches for the helm order and stops. He cannot turn. Here is where the math gets ugly. The Pacific Fortuna carries 300,000 tons of ship and cargo. At 15 knots, her stopping distance runs 4 to 8 kilometers. That is 15 minutes of forward momentum before she comes to rest. Her turning circle spans 4 kilometers, but the lane is only 2 miles wide. She cannot swerve without crossing into oncoming traffic or Iranian waters. Steering this ship is like steering an entire parking garage at highway speed. You do not dodge. You hold your heading and accept whatever sits in front of you, because by the time you see it, you have already arrived. The object slides past 200 meters to starboard. Nobody on the bridge breathes until it is behind them. What slid past the Pacific Fortuna was almost certainly a bottom influence mine anchored to the seabed on a steel cable, floating just below the surface with magnetic and acoustic sensors tuned to exactly one thing: the rumble and steel signature of a ship this size. Think of it as a mousetrap on the ocean floor. Except the mouse weighs 300,000 tons and cannot change direction. The lookout did not know what it was. He just knew it did not move like floating trash. The Pacific Fortuna passes another dark shape in the water. The lookout does not call it out this time. He just watches it slide past and exhales. But the one he should worry about is not floating. The bottom resting mine sits directly on the seabed and pretends to be a rock. Sonar bounces off and sees nothing but seafloor. Even US Navy dedicated minesweepers struggle with these. A commercial tanker armed with only a pair of binoculars has no chance whatsoever. Somewhere in London, a Lloyd's underwriter just spilled his tea, and somewhere, a spreadsheet just turned red. Iran's total mine inventory runs somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000, more than any other country in the region by a wide margin. And here is the part that makes mine sweeping basically impossible. IRGC small boats and fishing dhows can carry half a dozen mines each and drop them while looking like normal traffic. A fishing boat laying a mine looks exactly like a fishing boat pulling a net. Each mine costs Iran somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000. The tanker it is aimed at carries $180 million in crude oil. That is the kind of return on investment that would make a Wall Street trader quit his job and reconsider his life choices. A single detonation under a very large crude carrier could rupture the double hull and spill 2 million barrels into the shipping lane. An environmental catastrophe and a 2-mile-wide plug that nobody can move for weeks. But here is the part that matters more than any explosion. The mine does not actually need to go off. Before the crisis, the shipping industry treated this route the way you would treat your morning commute. Boring, safe, barely worth thinking about. War risk insurance ran a fraction of a percent. After Iran laid mines, Lloyd's of London took one look at the new reality and tripled the premium overnight. The mine sitting on the seabed is doing its job without detonating, because the real weapon is not the explosion. It is the price tag on the possibility of one. The insurance meter is already climbing, and the Pacific Fortuna has not cleared the minefield yet. The mines are the threat the crew cannot see. The one they are about to see is doing 52 knots. The bridge radar paints fast-moving contacts at 8:14 in the morning, small returns converging from the Iranian coast north of Larak Island, 5 becoming 8, 8 becoming 12, all tracking at 40 to 50 knots on an intercept course. At the Pacific Fortuna's 15 knots, they will be alongside in minutes. Visual confirmation comes fast. Low hulls running hard with spray flying off the bows. Iranian naval insignia snapping in the wind. Weapons mounts visible on the foredecks. 8 boats fan out around the Pacific Fortuna. The first crosses the bow at 200 meters, close enough to see faces. A second runs parallel at 30 meters, crewmen filming on handheld cameras. A third makes a high-speed pass down the port side and throws a wake that slaps the hull. On the bridge, the second officer grabs the satellite phone to call the management company in Athens. The bosun is filming from the port wing. The shipping company requires video documentation of every IRGC encounter for the insurance claim that will inevitably follow. The lookout is quietly counting weapons mounts and wondering whether international law actually stops missiles. The bridge radio crackles, then broken English. Marshall Islands vessel. You are entering restricted waters. Alter course for Bandar Abbas immediately. The captain keys his radio. His hand is not steady. IRGC vessel. This is Pacific Fortuna, transiting international waters under the right of transit passage, maintaining course and speed. International maritime law sounds authoritative on paper. It sounds very small when 8 missile boats are circling your ship. These are IRGC Navy fast attack craft, and the US military already knows exactly how dangerous they are because it effectively lost a war game to them. The backbone of the fleet is a class of missile boat 17 meters long, 14 tons displacement, armed with anti-ship missiles and fast enough at 52 knots to cover a nautical mile in 68 seconds. The Pacific Fortuna covers that same distance in 4 minutes. Imagine a pack of armed jet skis circling your above-ground pool while you stand in the middle, holding a garden hose. That is the Pacific Fortuna's tactical situation right now. Her defensive options are the radio, the camera phones, and a strongly worded email to the insurance company. Behind the fast attack craft come catamaran missile boats carrying anti-ship missiles with ranges stretching from 120 to 170 kilometers and 165-kilogram warheads. Behind those come hundreds of small-armed speedboats carrying machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, or explosives for ramming. What the bridge crew of the Pacific Fortuna does not know, and what the IRGC commander on the lead boat absolutely does, is that the Pentagon already learned what this swarming doctrine could do. The lesson came in 2002 with a $250 million price tag. Millennium Challenge, the most expensive war game in military history, put an Iran-like adversary up against a U.S. carrier strike group in the Gulf. A retired Marine 3-star general named Paul Van Riper commanded the Iranian side. He sent waves of fast boats combined with shore-based missiles and explosive-laden ramming craft. Van Riper sank 16 warships in under 10 minutes, including a carrier. The Pentagon was so stunned, they reset the simulation and scripted an American victory. Van Riper walked out. He told reporters that nothing was learned and that a military culture unwilling to honestly test itself did not bode well for the future. The IRGC was paying attention, even if Washington was not. They have been drilling these exact tactics in these exact waters ever since, and the boats have only gotten faster. On the lead boat, the IRGC commander watches the tanker hold course. He checks his orders: intimidate, document, report, do not fire. The boats hold formation for 6 more minutes, then peel off toward the coast. The bridge crew exhales. The captain does not. The boats were the threat they could see. The one on the coast does not need to move at all. The IRGC has not fired a single round yet. Keshem Island fills the northern horizon. 120 kilometers of Iranian territory running parallel to the shipping lane, close enough to make out buildings on the shore. Communications towers, vehicles on the coastal road, structures carved into the cliffside that do not look like houses because they are not. The captain has not left the bridge wing since the boats peeled off. The chart says 22 nautical miles to the exit. At current speed, that is roughly 90 minutes of Iranian cliffside passing close enough to starboard that the crew can practically smell diesel exhaust from the coast road. The Pacific Fortuna passes a stretch of coastline where satellite imagery from the previous week showed launcher tracks in the dirt. Trucks that rolled out of hardened cave positions, parked on the clifftop, and rolled back underground. What those trucks carry is the threat nobody aboard can see coming or do anything about. The coastal anti-ship missile does not need to be close to hit you. From a battery hidden in those cliffsides, it flies at nearly the speed of sound and drops to 5 to 7 meters above the water in the terminal phase. Roughly the height of a basketball hoop above the wavetops, it navigates the first 100 kilometers without emitting a single signal. Inertial guidance, nothing to intercept, nothing to jam. In the terminal phase, it lights up its own active radar seeker, shouting into the dark and listening for the echo of steel hull. By the time that echo returns, the missile is already inside your last line of defense. Think of it as a torpedo with wings. It sneaks in so low that by the time a ship's radar picks up something at that altitude, the missile is seconds away. Upgraded variants push the range to 170 kilometers, enough to cover the entire strait from a single battery. The warhead carries roughly 165 kilograms of high explosive and fires from mobile launchers that drive back into their caves before anyone traces the launch point. The entire coastline is a loaded gun pointed at the shipping lane, and you cannot see the barrel. And what sits on mobile launchers farther inland is where the math breaks entirely. Iran's anti-ship ballistic missile climbs on a solid rocket motor, arcs to altitude, and dives into the target from near vertical at 3 to 5 times the speed of sound. The warhead weighs 650 kilograms, and an electro-optical seeker steers it onto moving ships in the final seconds of flight. A coastal anti-ship missile might give you 30 seconds of warning. The ballistic variant arrives from straight above at 5 times the speed of sound. Your warning time is roughly 2 seconds, less time than it takes to like a post. Iran did not even bother giving it a subtle name. They called it Persian Gulf. No commercial vessel on Earth carries a defense against either weapon. A hit on a loaded, very large crude carrier probably would not sink her immediately. They are enormous and compartmentalized, but it does not need to. A warhead plus 2 million barrels of crude equals fire. A burning supertanker in a 2-mile-wide shipping lane is a physical blockade until someone figures out how to move 300,000 tons of flaming wreckage. Nobody on that bridge has ever seen a lane this narrow with this many weapons pointed at it. The bosun, 23 years at sea and more Hormuz transits than he can count, says it never felt like this before. The insurance premiums have been climbing since the first mine passed under the keel. Iran's operating cost for the entire gauntlet so far: 1 drone, 8 boats, and a VHF radio call. The lookout calls a new contact, something airborne, small and slow, circling at 5,000 feet. The drone orbiting the Pacific Fortuna is an Iranian reconnaissance aircraft, and it has been the eye in the sky for every IRGC action against shipping since the crisis began, feeding position, speed, and heading to every missile battery and boat commander in range. Its attack cousin is a one-way strike drone, a flying warhead with 2,500 kilometers of range that costs roughly $20,000 a copy. In 2019, a swarm of these weapons knocked out half of Saudi Arabia's oil output using munitions that cost less than a new family sedan. A $20,000 drone against a $180 million cargo. That is the asymmetry Iran built its entire strategy around. And the drone overhead is proof of concept. The reconnaissance drone circles twice more and banks north into the haze. Not attacking, cataloging. The first mate watches it disappear and mutters that at least his wife's delivery drones actually drop something off when they circle the house. The captain does not laugh. Somewhere on Keshm Island, a coastal battery just received the Pacific Fortuna's updated position. The weapons are loaded. Iran is waiting to see if it needs to use them. Abu Musa passes to the north, the last IRGC garrison before open water. The bridge crew watches it slide by in silence, radar clear. The HF quiet for the first time in hours. The strait opens into the Gulf of Oman, and the coastline finally recedes. The captain orders a course change southeast toward Fujairah. 2 million barrels intact, 25 crew intact, not a single mine detonated, missile launched, or shot fired. Iran let them through every mile of that transit. Mines, boats, missiles, drones. The IRGC never pulled a trigger, but the insurance company did. Before the crisis, war risk on this corridor ran a fraction of a percent, a rounding error. Today it runs 2 to 3%. On the Pacific Fortuna, that translates to several $1 million for a single transit through a corridor Iran just proved it controls. Iran's rumored fee to skip the gauntlet entirely: $2 million. Every ship owner on the planet already has a calculator open. 2 million is cheaper than several million, and paying is safer than praying. The weapon was never the warhead. The weapon was the arithmetic. The entire gauntlet exists to make $2 million sound like a bargain. And the fee exists so Iran never has to actually use the gauntlet. But here is what Iran is betting you will not look at. 60 nautical miles south of where the Pacific Fortuna just exhaled, a U.S. amphibious ready group is holding station in the Gulf of Oman. 3 warships, 2,000 Marines, and enough Seahawk helicopters to sanitize the outbound lane. A carrier strike group is rotating through the Arabian Sea with an air wing that could put every coastal launcher on Keshem Island out of business before the second cup of coffee. The 5th Fleet Mine Countermeasure Squadron has 4 purpose-built Avenger-class sweepers forward deployed to Bahrain, designed specifically to find and destroy exactly the weapons Iran just laid. And the thing about American carrier groups is that their insurance premiums do not change based on proximity to Iran. Iran built a toll booth, but every day that toll booth operates, tanker companies are rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope, adding 14 days and $1 million per voyage to avoid the strait entirely. Iran's leverage shrinks with every ship that finds another way around. The question nobody in Tehran wants to answer is what happens when the United States decides to remove it.